Kathy, it's Stacy here. Could you please make me a co-host of the meeting?
I will.
Thanks so much.
So, looks like you got it.
Okay. And then I get out of live on YouTube first.
So once you're finished
All right, it is 3 o'clock. Looks like we're still waiting for a couple more. Oh, people are popping on. Okay. Kathy, are we all good from your end?
We are hooked up on Zoom. Diana, are we good on eScribe?
There you go, you're good.
We're good to go.
Great. Thanks so much for that. So I will call today's Public Safety and Health Committee meeting to order. Today is Wednesday, February 3rd. As everyone has gathered, we are still continuing to meet virtually given the circumstances around the pandemic. But there were plenty of ways for folks to continue to engage with us about issues in regards to public safety and health and other committee meetings and city council at large. All of that can be found at the city's website, www.ci.missoula.mt.us/webcasts. There you can find a list of upcoming meetings, as well as ways to leave comment for open agenda items. You can sign up to attend or find the links to attend our Monday night city council meetings or any of our Wednesday committee meetings. You can also at any time leave a voicemail for city council, and that phone number is 406-552-6012. That voicemail will go out to all members of the city council. And you can also reach us by email, which is council@ci.missoula.mt.us. All of our meetings and committee meetings are streamed on the city website, on our YouTube channel, and on MCAT Spectrum TV channel 190. So for those folks who are in attendance to today's committee meeting, there will be a couple different points for you to provide comment. If you do wish to do so and you have joined us via Zoom link, you will be able to raise your hand. And when we get to that portion, I'll let you know and you can raise your hand and be called upon. If you are calling in via one of the phone numbers and wish to make comment at the allotted time, you can press *9, which will signal that you want to be called upon. I will let you into the meeting and let you know that you have been called upon by reading out the last 4 digits of your telephone number. And you will be able to then unmute yourself and provide comment. So with that, looks like, and for those who are on the watching us and on the computer, Kathy or Diana are putting up the all this information I just read out for you to see as well, if that is easier for you. With that, while that is up on the screen, I'll go ahead and call out roll. I do believe everyone is here, myself, Miss Becerra. Okay, I guess I'll
I'm here.
Oh, fabulous. Okay, Mr. Contos, I'm pretty sure I saw you.
Here.
Miss Harp.
Present.
Wonderful. Mr. Hess.
Present.
Ms. Jones.
Present.
Miss Barrett.
Present.
Mr. Ramos.
Present.
Perfect. Ms. Cheryl.
Present.
Ms. Visica.
Present.
Mr. Von Lossberg.
Here.
And Ms. West.
Here.
All right, the full complement of council members are in attendance for today. We have one set of minutes to approve. They're from January 6th. They are when we brought on and confirmed the 3 new officers. So without any objections, those minutes will stand approved. Does anybody have any changes to those? All right, great. Seeing none, those minutes will stand approved. So at this point in time, I will open it up for public comment on agenda or on non-agenda items. So if you'd like to make comment about something that's under the purview of Public Safety and Health Committee meeting, but not on today's agenda, you can go ahead and raise your hand or press *9 if you'd like to make comment. Give everyone a quick second to orientate themselves and press the allotted buttons. All right, I don't see anyone taking advantage of the general public comment portion of our agenda, so we will continue to move on. We have 2 items on today's agenda. One of them is the firearm safety resolution brought by council members Fasica, Contos, and Ramos, which will take up the bulk of today's agenda time today, and then we will do a quick review of the remaining items held in committee, just to clean those up, because that is the time of year we're in. So with that, I will turn it over to the resolution sponsors to make any sort of presentation or comments that they wish to have, and then we will continue on. So I do think the lead on this is Ms. Fasica, so I will let her go ahead right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm here to ask the council to adopt a resolution for firearm safety. This is not a pro-gun or an anti-gun resolution. This is purely about firearm safety. One of the things that this resolution promotes, not requires, is a brief firearm safety brochure to be taught to 1st through 3rd graders. It is an easy and quick pamphlet to be taught with the student, teacher, and parents that teaches the important rule of don't touch a firearm. And if a friend touches a firearm, you leave and tell an adult. This is crucial because even if your household does not have any firearms, it is estimated that up to 90 to 95% of households in Montana do have firearms. Even if you don't have any yourself, it is very likely that your child will go to a home that does have one. Most homes probably have their firearms safely locked up, but it is a great step to know that your child knows what to do if they do see a firearm, that they know not to touch it. I would encourage everyone to look at and teach their kids the handout on attachment B, the Be Safe brochure. This resolution also promotes hunter safety education in schools. This resolution is not requiring hunter safety in schools. It is purely saying that the city backs this curriculum. This stance is supported by state law in Montana Code Annotated 2019 20-7-132, which states, the trustees of a district are encouraged to establish and maintain a firearm safety education course. The trustees may adopt a course of instruction developed by the Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, a law enforcement agency, or a firearms association as its firearm safety education course. Instructors from the Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, a law enforcement agency, or a firearms association, or a person recognized by the trustees as having expertise in firearm safety education may be used to provide this instruction. This is also supported by the Superintendent of Public Instruction, and I ask that the city just follow suit. Firearm safety should be taught to anyone who handles a firearm, but there are a lot of limitations on how one can access these programs. Currently, they are taught outside of school hours, and many school-age children lack the resources, the funds, transportation, and/or time necessary to complete these programs. Especially as a female, I think it is important to make hunter safety more available to young girls out there. As I personally took my hunter safety education course with my brother's Boy Scout troop. If hunter safety is in schools, it will be purely voluntary, not mandatory, much like driver's ed. And if hunter safety were to be in schools, it would not be the responsibility of the teachers to teach, as they are already overworked. It would be taught by a certified hunter's education teacher. When I spoke with FWP, they told me that there are many retired folks who would be interested in getting certified or are already certified and would love to teach the class. It is quite possible that there are teachers already in the classroom who would be interested in getting certified or are already certified to teach this class. What I am proposing with this resolution is to encourage schools to add this program at the school's discretion as an elective or a before or after school program to participate in voluntarily and not taking away any current curricula. Finally, as many of you in the audience remember, and some folks who were on council at the time, it was voted in 2016 to establish an ordinance for mandatory background checks for private transfer of firearms. That ordinance was then overturned. This resolution promotes the individual's duty to responsibly follow a procedure when selling or transferring a firearm to another individual. This resolution helps promote a guideline that details out moral responsibility, state and federal laws, civil liability, and practical matters such as knowing who you are selling to and indications on whether a buyer is copacetic. This resolution is purely about promoting safety. I want to be clear, this is purely promoting, not requiring firearm safety, and it is providing resources. We live in Montana, where a favorite pastime is shooting, hunting, and collecting firearms. Like I mentioned before, up to 90 to 95% of households in Montana do have firearms. In a perfect world, every firearm would be locked up safely and securely. But this is not a perfect world, and adults do make mistakes. It is a responsible thing to at least teach our kids not to touch a firearm without proper supervision. It is a responsible thing to promote and pass this resolution, taking a stand for proper firearm safety. That's all I have for the intro of that. If Jesse or John want to add anything else. Okay, then I'll open it up to questions. Or I guess, Madam Chair, I'll put it back to you.
Okay, sounds great. Okay, so we had a presentation on the resolution. I will now open it up to questions from council members. And I see Miss Merritt, you have your hand raised.
Thank you. This raises a lot of questions for me, but I won't try and take up all our time with that. I am curious where that statistic of that 90 to 95% of households in Montana own guns. What's the source for that statistic?
I read it on the Be Safe brochure. I also read it in a Gun Laws of Montana book. I can also, those are from essentially the same source, MSSA, but I can find another source of that. Another statistic that is known, I can't remember where I read it, but I think it was an Organization of Firearm Safety, is that nearly a third of households in America have guns. So there's a statistic that's nationwide.
33% and 90 to 95% are pretty big difference.
No, so I'm sorry. I was just giving you for America in general, the nation, 33% in the nation, and Montana is a highly firearm state. So I got it from a book called Gun Laws of Montana by Gary Marbut, and I also got it from the MSSA website.
Okay. I believe from my review of that literature that it's very dated. And so I just wonder if we should be relying on that. But Madam Chair, if I could have a follow-up.
Yes, you may. Thank you for asking.
I'm wondering if you have any evidence about the efficacy of this Be Safe training, especially for the age group of children that it's being geared towards, first through third graders. If there's any data studies that have been done that actually provide us some evidence that this program has any efficacy at preventing children from handling firearms.
I do not, but I would be happy to look into that and get that to you.
Are you aware that there is that there have been studies done that that provide evidence that this type of training is not effective? I mean, that it can get children to parrot the words back to you, but that when they're put into a situation where there's a firearm, that they don't actually follow the rules that they've been taught. Are you aware that there's published research on this?
If you would send me that published research, I'd be happy to look it over.
I will do that. I'll leave my questions at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Merritt. Ms. Cheryl.
Yeah, thanks. And I want to first say I appreciate any firearm safety is the idea of that. I'm 100% behind, but I also want to add on to what Julie just said is when I read this and I read about the ages, I was thinking a lot about where I was in my life, what my kids were doing, and, when you're that's like 6 to 8 years old, right? You're learning to tell time. I mean, I was sitting there with books where they were, sounding out the sentences. These kids are young. So, that, and I don't know the studies behind it. I did not look that up, but, thinking in my own life and with both of my children, I would definitely like to see more research on the developmental appropriateness of this. So that's just a comment. I do believe that the Montana Code refers to a district having the right to put something in, and I think districts means school district, not a city council. So I want that to be clarified. But my question for you, I guess, is have you, like, what is, and I don't know, I don't know, I'm not setting you up on this because I don't know the answer. What is, I'm assuming you researched this, right? So what is the curriculum, to get curriculum in a school? Number one, does seem like a school board decision to me, not something that, I'm not an educator. I wasn't elected to the school board. No one asked me questions about school curriculum, nor should they, because I don't know enough about it. What have you learned in your research about how that works in our county and in our city?
No, that's a great question. I'm not suggesting that this be a curriculum to replace anything or to actually be a class. It's just a quick brochure to have an assembly on, or for somebody to come in and just talk to the class for 10 minutes, maybe an hour, just once a year, maybe. Like I said, this is just something promoting the firearm safety, because it is up to the school board. It is up to the trustees. I was not elected to a school board, and we weren't. This is just purely having the city say that we encourage this to be in schools so that it gives them an opportunity to discuss it, to talk about it. And like I mentioned with the FWP, the Hunters Education Program, this is just purely saying that the city says, you know, that's a good idea. We encourage it in schools. And so it'll purely be up to the schools to decide. It is not getting a curriculum in the schools. Does that answer your question?
Kind of. May I have a follow-up?
Yes, you may.
Okay, I couldn't find you. Couldn't see you. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm going to go back to the fact that seems like a school board. It's still a piece of the curriculum. I'm not saying that you're suggesting it's a full semester class, but anything that they add into the curriculum is part of the curriculum, right? So whether we call it a brochure, or we call it a presentation, or it's still part of the curriculum. And I think that is something that, in my personal opinion, should be vetted by a school board. And that is how the Montana Code is written. Like, this is something that needs to be vetted by the school board. And, you know, if it's something, I guess I would support you going to the school board and supporting it with them, but it doesn't seem, we don't seem like the right body, nor do I have the education behind it. I would also like to see the numbers that Julie had asked about, because, you know, we're not a household that has guns. Not that that means anything. You are, you know, there's 50-50 right there. So I'd like to know what those numbers are anyway, but that's my feeling on it. I think it is curriculum. And I think this is a school. Sorry, I accidentally muted myself. Is a school board decision. And I think that's what the Montana Code says.
No, I agree with you. And that is what the Montana Code says. And just like the Montana Code says, and as we are a legislative official, it is our duty to uphold state law. So I'm just bringing attention that state law is encouraging this. And it's not part of the curriculum, like I said, just as how firefighters come in and teach stop, drop, and roll, or you're taught not to put, you know, a fork in the electrical socket, or anything like that. It's just something to encourage. Maybe if schools wanted to have somebody come in, this is just a city backing it up, saying, hey, we encourage it. You don't have to do it. We're not trying to take over your jobs. This is just a city saying, or the city agreeing with the state and the superintendent of public instruction saying, we encourage firearm safety.
Okay. I think it's still a curriculum issue, I guess. So, and it's still a curriculum issue. Firefighters stop, drop, and roll is a curriculum issue.
Okay, Ms. Cheryl, do you have any more follow-ups, or?
No, I think we're just defining things differently.
Okay, I just saw your hand was still up. So, all right, we'll move on. Ms. Jones.
Thanks. Just to follow up briefly on what Ms. Cheryl was speaking to, my understanding is that there are national standards, the Common Core content standards, and then there are state standards, and then the board aligns the curriculum, the school board. So there is a whole process there, and our local Missoula County Public Schools go through a very lengthy process vetting all of the curriculum and ultimately voting on it. And that's the way to go about it. So I'm really hesitant for City Council to be weighing in on this issue, I guess, because I'm not seeing that it's our place, basically. They have a head of curriculum, Elise Guest, who handles all of this. And, I think that Montana state code mandates that they have to teach Native American education, but we don't weigh in on that either. It's just not our place. But I was just curious. I know that after LR 130 passed last fall, that Gary Marbut, I think, emailed all of City Council and wanted us to bring a resolution. Is this the same resolution?
It is. It is a little bit differing, but essentially, yes, it is.
And is it Mr. Marbut who has the MSSA, Montana Shooting Sports Association? Is that his entity?
Yes.
Okay, and he's the same guy who ran on the Green Party and was kicked off the ballot because he was found to, I forget what the rationale, but he ran for the legislature or something on the Green Party, which is all about environmentalism, but he ultimately was kicked off the ballot. This is the same?
I'm not sure about that. I'm purely working with him with the firearm safety stuff.
Great. Okay, well, I guess, is there just, for any of the sponsors on this, why are we considering articulating something that's really under the purview of the Missoula County Public Schools Board of Trustees?
So essentially what I'm trying to do is, because I talked with FWP and some school officials, and what I learned essentially is that this is a very hot button issue and it's very controversial. And to even bring up the topic of teaching firearm safety in schools it's really hard to bring up that conversation. So and with FWP, they have to be approached by the schools to teach it. They would love to teach it in all these schools. In fact, they used to teach it as an after school program in some schools. I know that my husband took it when he was in school as an after school program. So I'm happy to work with all of you guys and reword some stuff, work with different people on this. All I want to do is just get firearm safety be something that the city backs and talks about.
Okay.
Did you want me to weigh in on that?
Yeah, Jesse, I don't know if your hand raised as a sponsor or if you had a question, comment. Go ahead.
Oh, Ms. Jones was just asking the other sponsors kind of their thoughts to weigh on this as well. So the first thing that I kind of want to bring up is that it seems a little bit ungenuine from other folks on the council saying that this isn't really in our purview to weigh in on. I've been on council for 3 years and 2 months at this point, and we've weighed in on all kinds of things that are outside of our purview through resolution. Actually, I was on council when we wrote a letter to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School way back in Florida. So that if Missoula County Public Schools are out of our purview, Marjorie Stoneman Douglas has to be way out of our purview. So that's just kind of my thought. It seems inconsistent, and I get that could be ideological, but to me it doesn't seem sincere that folks are all of a sudden concerned about maybe the separation of school board and city council, because all this does is suggest that it might be a good idea. It doesn't say you have to do this, you have to teach this way. It's just saying we support the general idea of safety. Just like in the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas letter that we hope for sensible solutions to school gun violence, this appears to me to be a very sensible solution. Teaching kids at a young age that weapons are very powerful, that with great power comes great responsibility. And I don't think, and I've heard members of the council say this, that more education is never a bad thing. So I guess I just wanted to weigh in with that because I'm confused, and maybe I'm completely off base. I'm a little slow on a lot of things, but it just seems to me that it's inconsistent with how council's weighed in on things in the past. If you don't like the resolution, don't like the idea of gun safety, it seems like that's fine, but it just seems a little disingenuous to suggest that the council shouldn't be weighing in on something like this. But that's just my opinion. Again, I'm not the brightest bulb in the chandelier.
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thanks. So I just want to point out the letter we wrote to the Marjorie Stone Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, after the massacre there was in support of them. It wasn't dictating their curriculum. So it's a big, big difference. And I think it is a different step to take to weigh in on something when we have a local entity here in town that addresses it. And we do pass resolutions on different items at different points in time, but this more education is always better in general. However, it's not that hard to do an hour's worth of research online and realize that gun education for first graders is a very, not only controversial, but can be extremely ineffective and actually have unintended consequences if it's not done correctly. And there's actually a lot of research and child psychology behind how do you do it appropriately. So I think there's a lot of issues to discuss here, and that's why you look at the data. It's really, really important. So just wanted to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess I will take the opportunity as chair to ask a question because that Ms. Jones brought up for me. I'd like to ask the sponsors, why this particular curriculum did you select to endorse the Be Safe curriculum? In your research comparative to other curriculum, what stood out about this particular curriculum that is why you decided to make the choice to go forward with it?
A lot of the other curriculum was teaching parents to lock up their guns. I couldn't find any other curriculum that would teach the kids not to touch the guns. So this was essentially it was putting it on the parents and as the kids as well, because like I mentioned in the introduction, that adults make mistakes. Sometimes they leave their guns unlocked. In a perfect world, and that would never happen, but it does happen sometimes. So this is the only curriculum that I found that taught kids not to touch a gun.
Okay. I guess my follow-up to that is in kind of timing. I do think it's a little bit, as Ms. Jones mentioned, we were proactively reached out to by Mr. Marbut asking us to put together this resolution. I understand that there are some differences in what you're bringing before to us. I guess when you were doing your research, did his email asking us to bring this forward prompt you, or were you already working on this beforehand?
I personally was working on this beforehand. Before coronavirus hit, I reached out to FWP and some school officials asking how I could help get FWP into or FWP Hunters Education programs into schools. I was told by FWP that the schools have to reach out to them, and then I started reaching out to school officials, and they said that it's just not something that they're comfortable doing. It's because it's really controversial. So yes, it is essentially up to the schools, but Hunters FWP is really excited about getting into schools because, everyone wants to be, everyone wants hunters to be safe. And like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people don't have access to these programs. So I was working on that and then coronavirus hit. So schools and a lot of other government entities were busy with a lot of other more important things. So then when Gary published that, I kind of took it as a Kickstarter to reintroduce that idea.
Right. So when you reached out to the school officials about getting them encouraging to connect with FWP, did they ask you to bring this resolution forward to the city as a way to, sort of, since they were not wanting to touch this issue, given that they felt it was controversial, did they ask you to bring this forward as a city resolution?
No, only one school official responded to me. All the other ones did not respond to any of my emails or calls.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, I will get off my questioning as chair and move on to the rest of the members of the committee. Next, I have Ms. West.
So I have one question. I guess we do have programs that are a collaboration between the city or the county that happen in public schools, which the one I think of is our consent education programs. And I was, which is built on extensive collaboration. And I guess you just answered the question that they didn't really respond. I was also going to make the motion just because I feel like we've wandered into discussion territory versus asking questions, unless one of the sponsors would like to make the motion instead. And then I do have some comments.
You can make the motion, absolutely.
All right, sweet. So I'll make the motion, but I am not going to support it. I think that there are, I guess there is a separation of jurisdictions here, where I don't think it is appropriate for the city council to suggest what the public school system include in their curriculum, even though this would not be, a mandate. And I say that as a family that does own guns and also is actively involved in gun safety education. I don't think that it's appropriate for City Council to create a resolution in this, I guess, about this. And I think that it would be appropriate coming from the Board of Trustees or from parents and PTAs, for example, at individual schools. A lot of presentations and assemblies are directly sponsored by PTAs and parent groups, and I think that that would be an appropriate place for this sort of thing to come from, but not from us. So, thanks.
Okay, so there is a motion on the floor and that's appropriate. So we will continue on with questions and comments from council members, and we will make sure to leave time at the end to also ask for public comment before we go forward with a vote. Next up, I have Ms. Becerra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions for the sponsors, I guess. My first one is, can you speak to the grade ranges? Why first to third grade? I'll start with that one.
I cannot. That's just what what MSSA recommends. I'd be happy to look into why those grades and get back to you on that.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Seems awfully young, but there might be some rationale perhaps behind why those grades are important to get educated. My other question is, do you know of any other school districts that have, and maybe you answered this question already, that have this program available to their students, this educational opportunity? And are there any of those in Montana? And I guess related to this question is, would this resolution and encouragement apply to MCPS only, or have you talked to the SMET school, Hellgate Elementary School?
I'm not aware that this is in any other schools. And I guess, no, I'm not sure if this would apply to just the Missoula County Public School System. It's just, I guess I would encourage it for all school systems, but I guess, I'm sorry, I don't really know how to answer that question.
Yeah, I think it's important that we at least reach out to them, or that you do, because they are part of the city of Missoula, just different school district, but also within the city limits. And I guess my last question is, would all this education be done by one entity, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks? And do they have the staff necessary to do this?
So with FWP, they take volunteers. They do, it's kind of, I guess they have some people on staff that do it, but then they also take in anybody who wants to get certified that can come in and teach that class. So you and me could go get certified, retirees could go get certified, any of the teachers can go get certified.
But as an organization or as an entity, it would be Fish, Wildlife, and Parks who organizes that education and certification.
I guess in partnership with the schools, it would be, I'd have to reach out with FWP to figure out what the exact details are on how that works.
Okay, thanks.
So I guess just to clarify on Ms. Becerra's question, it seems as though there's the FWP aspect. Are they also promoting and willing to teach the Be Safe curriculum, or is that a separate entity?
That's a separate part.
Okay.
So this resolution is encouraging the Be Safe program, and then a completely separate part encouraging hunter safety in schools, and then a completely separate part encouraging proper knowledge when transferring firearms within private sale.
May I have a quick follow-up then, Ms. Chair?
Yes, that's fine.
So can you tell me then who is going to be teaching what aspects of all those different sections that you just mentioned?
So the Be Safe program would just be a brochure that is available to teachers. And if it's approved by the school board, that's just available to print out and just teach their kids, just quick 10-minute thing. It's just a quick little 1-page brochure.
And who puts that on?
It's just something that you print out and the teacher does that, or somebody can come in and teach it.
But the information in it, who develops that? Is it a Fish, Wildlife and Parks?
It's just MSSA. It's just a brochure that you read. Just a 1-page thing that you read to your students.
Put on by MSSA.
Put out by MSSA, yes. And then the second one is just encouraging FWP to be allowed in schools to teach hunters education. And then the third thing is just the city saying, hey, here is a guideline on how to sell. If you're looking to sell your firearm, here's a guideline on how to properly do that to stay within state law.
Okay.
So that last part isn't in schools or anything like that. It's just a little notification, or just a little information page on how to properly do that to stay within state and federal laws.
Gotcha. Thanks.
All right, moving on. We'll move to President von Lossberg.
My questions have actually been answered, and I'm going to save my comments for after public comment. And I just want to float the idea to the chair that it'd be good to get to public comment maybe first before too much more deliberation.
Thank you for that guidance, always appreciated. All right, Miss Harp has her hand up. She hasn't spoken or asked a question yet, so we'll let her go. Then we'll open it up to public comment. So for those folks who are in attendance who wish to give public comment, please go ahead and tee up. After that, they will then come back to the remaining council members to ask another round of questions and comments. So Miss Harp, go ahead.
Thank you. Sandy, going back to this age appropriateness, was there any other possible age groups that there was curriculum type materials for, or was it really just for these first and second graders?
I'm sure that it could be developed for other grades, and I'd be happy to work with all of you guys to find out if there is a curriculum for older students. I'd also be happy to work with you guys to kind of amend this resolution to see if it's something that we can come to an agreement.
Okay. Stacey, I will save a comment for later after public comment.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. Okay, so I see that we have 2 hands raised from public comment. So we do ask that you keep your comments brief to 3 minutes. So I'm going to allow Danette, and the rest of your last name does not appear. So you've been allowed into the meeting. You should be able to give your public comment. Can you hear us?
I can. It's Fadness, actually.
Oh, thank you. Okay, yes.
Okay, well, I appreciate this opportunity. So I am Danette Fadness, Missoula resident, mother, grandmother, child injury prevention educator, suicide prevention educator. And I can tell you that from my suicide prevention education, that it's more like around 65% of our Montana households that do own firearms. So for those who are looking for those statistics, I'm here to say that the Be Safe program, the brochure that they've been talking about, is not developmentally appropriate education for 6 to 8-year-old kids, and it lacks best practice firearm safety measures. Can you guys see me or no? You can't, can you? Okay. The American Academy of Pediatrics, the CDC, Safe Kids Worldwide, Everytown for Gun Safety, the Be Smart program, and suicide prevention programs all agree the onus is on adults to keep kids safe by responsibly storing their guns unloaded, locked, and out of reach inside of youth with ammunition locked and stored separately. It is always an adult's responsibility to keep kids safe, prevent unauthorized access to guns, not a curious kid's responsibility to avoid guns. However, it is important to teach kids not to touch guns if they find one and to tell an adult right away. Simply talking to kids about guns is a precaution, not a guarantee of safety. Kids are curious and they may find and touch an unsecured gun even if they've been told not to. If a child handles a gun, a bad decision can quickly become a fatal one. Each year in the United States, nearly 300 children aged 17 and under gain access to a firearm and unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else, and over 600 more children die by suicide with a gun each year. 80% of those youth gained access to the firearm at home or a relative's home. Firearm safety best practices place the onus on adults to keep kids safe from guns, unlike the Be Safe brochure, which seeks to gun-proof our kids. Although parents often believe their kids do not know where the guns are stored, research shows that 70% know where they are stored, and 35% of them have gained access without their parents' knowledge. Kids are curious. Don't touch is an astonishingly useless thing to tell first to third graders. In a congressional report by the Government Accountability Office, they found that teaching kids not to touch guns is highly ineffective, noting most of the children were able to verbally recall the safety message, but when the children found a gun, they did not leave the area nor tell an adult during the assessment. They found this method was only effective with intensive training, which this brochure clearly cannot provide. The brochure lacks these best practice safety measures and seeks to normalize gun access for children, noting their parents let the kids spend as much time as they want looking at the guns, talking about gun safety, as soon they will be ready for their first .22 rifles. During injury prevention work, I talk with families about responsible storage, and I've given out over 5,000 gun locks to give families the tools for responsible storage and to keep our kids safe. The majority of the Be Safe brochure, 11 of about 15 paragraphs, glamorize guns, teach kids how to touch guns, making it seem like because a child has received this brief education, they are ready to handle firearms, which endangers our children and may give families a false sense of safety. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Next, we have in the queue Bob Campbell, who should be able to join us and provide public comment.
Hi there, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good, thank you. Yes, members of the committee, my name is Bob Campbell. I live in Ward 5, and I'd like to voice my support for this resolution. I feel that support from the city in adopting this resolution could serve as an impetus for schools to create and sustain meaningful firearm safety education. And I've been listening to a lot of discussion here about curriculum, what is it, what won't it be, what would be directed by this resolution in particular. And I think we're missing the forest through the trees, so to speak, a little bit. I look at this resolution, I see it as a way of transmitting an ideal more than anything else to school boards here in the Missoula area, and just give them the idea, the motivation to go now and create the curriculum that they think is appropriate, and that you as a council think it is important to set up some sort of gun safety education in the classroom, and let the form of that happen with our elected school boards. And let's face it, Montana has a strong long-standing tradition involving the possession and use of firearms, and Missoula is no exception. And as discussed, we talk about hunting, target sports, self-defense, or simply to collect. And I think that would hope that each and every owner of firearms treat them with due care and safety at all times, including storage. But unfortunately, of course, that's not always going to be the case. As such, there's always going to be a possibility of a young child exposed to a firearm or left out in an unsafe condition, be it on a living room counter, in a car, bedroom closet, you name it. And I've heard some discussion about percentages of ownership in the Missoula area. Is it 30%? Is it 90%? Obviously, I think common sense would say it's probably somewhere in between the two, but I guess in one sense, it's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is they're out there, they're being stored, to some extent. I'm sure people aren't treating them with the respect that they deserve. And so our kids are going to be confronted, in one way, shape, or form with having a firearm left out in an unsafe condition. As for me and my family, we've always practiced strict gun safety. Just a little personal background. I've raised 4 children myself to adulthood. And I've had professional firearms training both in the military and as a law enforcement officer here in the Missoula community. Yet as a parent, of course, I'm always worried my kids, when they're younger, go out to play, who they're associating with, who their friends are, about their parents and their households. And it's always been in the back of my mind about, how they are setting up situation of promoting firearm safety in those other households. And this is why I think gun safety education could really make a difference, be it in the classroom, hunter safety programs, state sanctioned hunter safety programs, nothing ad hoc. Offer those programs in schools as a way of increasing gun safety. And I think, again, curriculum wise, I think we're getting hung up here a little bit on particular curriculum. And, the idea of this resolution, as I'm reading it, is to transmit, again, the idea of the necessity that we think it's important that children be exposed to proper gun safety, observations and, ways of, bringing to the attention of parents when they see an unsafe condition so that, we can keep our kids safe. I feel the council here is a great opportunity to proclaim the importance of firearm safety amongst our youth and encourage our schools to provide this much needed education. And in closing, I'd just like to thank Councilors Basica, Katos, and Ramos for bringing this important resolution forward. And, I hope everyone in the committee here can support and adopt this resolution, keeping in mind, again, the idea that we're going to transmit to our local school boards the important idea of gun safety, in our homes, amongst our youth in the Missoula community. Thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for your public comment. That is all of the public comment that we have lined up right now. So we will move back to council members' questions and comments. And next up in the queue, I have Miss Cheryl.
Thanks. And I appreciate the comments that we heard. I also want to say that I do appreciate the sponsors, thought and support of gun safety as an issue in general. I really do. It's something I think our whole country thinks about. To me, this is a jurisdictional issue. If that issue didn't exist in my mind, I would support hunter safety at the appropriate age. I don't know exactly when you can get your hunter's license, but it's 12 or something. So I wouldn't support anything earlier than that for something in the schools. It does worry me, Sandra, to be honest, that you couldn't find other programs for kids. I think that says something and makes me wonder if it is due to the fact that it may, and I don't know, may not be developmentally appropriate at that age. So that piece worries me. I guess, I'm having a hard time getting over the jurisdictional issue anyway, but I would need to see support for this type of education for those younger kids from pediatricians, from physicians, from psychologists, not from the Montana Shooting Sports Association. I appreciate that and I don't know if the curriculum's good or it's not, I don't know. But I would definitely have to see that from someone that's trained in developmental issues for kids. So while I do appreciate the idea of gun safety, and I appreciate that you're trying to bring something like that forward for those reasons, as it stands right now, I don't know if you want to do research. I don't know where we're going to go with this, but I don't feel like I can support it where it is right now.
Thank you, Ms. Cheryl. Next, we have Ms. Merritt.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for the comments. And a couple of people have touched on this, but I just want to be crystal clear for Jesse, since he asked about the difference between the letter that we wrote to the Parkland community, supporting them after the tragedy that they suffered, and us as a lawmaking body passing a resolution that is attempting to direct the actions of other elected officials. In my opinion, we don't have, that would be like the school board writing a resolution and telling us we should do a better job of providing affordable housing because they have so many students who are homeless or at risk of homeless. And we don't do that. And I guess, so that's the difference there. And I don't think it's something that you need to be confused about. It's perfectly clear. When the city council as a lawmaking body passes a resolution, that's totally different than us signing on to support a community that's had a tragedy. I've got some other questions, but I'm going to save them. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Merritt. Next, we have President von Lossberg.
Thanks. I want to start by acknowledging, where we share some common ground, between myself and I know others on this council and the sponsors. And, we do share common ground around the importance of firearm safety and the other, concepts referenced in the referral. I can't support the resolution and I won't. And I want to be crystal clear about why, because it's not because of the shared ground that we have. It's that the resolution specifically calls out a curriculum, and with respect to the public comment, it's not a nebulous general sort of thing. It's a specific thing, and I will concisely say that curriculum offered is inappropriate, not proven, and several other things, but inappropriate. And I'm the irony is not lost on me. I'm actually a parent of a third grader in this, and I'm a firearm owner. When I purchased my firearms via a private transaction, I went through a background check voluntarily. And so similarly to the specific curriculum, and I believe the lack of efficacy of that curriculum, this resolution endorses a guide to private transactions. And again, I want to be clear, I and one of my co-sponsors of the background checks ordinance met with Mr. Marbut, and we reviewed this document about private firearm sales. There is some common ground in there. The guide references the background check system, which is not lost on me. It also recognizes an exemption for people that hold concealed carry permits, which in the course of deliberations over the background checks ordinance, we included as an exemption to our ordinance. So there's no question that there's some shared ground. There are other aspects to that guide that I find ineffective would be the kindest words I could use for it. And I will not sign my name endorsing those practices, despite the common ground around things like background checks. Much has been said about our role and the school board and the distinction between those two. I don't think I can really add on there other than to agree with those that have pointed out that there's nothing disingenuous about this. The only thing disingenuous is to not be able to see the difference between a letter of support to students in a community and a resolution, as Ms. Merritt was talking about. Absolutely fine to bring this to a school board. I would, as a parent of a school kid, I would not support it there, but that's the venue for things like this. So those are my reasons for not supporting it. But again, much like the way I started, I want to acknowledge that there are shared values here, Sandra and Jesse and John, around firearm safety. It's the particulars and the respect for the other governmental body that I can't and won't support. But thanks.
Thank you. Next up, I have Ms. Harp and then Ms. Fasika.
Thank you. Brian, I think you really articulated kind of where I'm feeling too, that just trying to speak to that shared ground. in every walk of my life, I really try and get to a yes as best as I possibly can, whether that's with you of my colleagues, or it's my staff, or it's just others in general, my family included. And I think, Sandy, you know, despite some of my colleagues' comments, I really do appreciate what you're trying to do. And I think going to the school board in particular and presenting this idea, I think is the way to go about it. There are a couple of other issues that I would actually join you at the table presenting to the school board in addition to firearm safety, because we realize that more and more young people, and they get younger and younger, that are more and more susceptible to suicide. And death by suicide is a real thing in Montana, including as young as 9 and 10 years old. So it's important to have these really hard conversations, no matter how difficult they might be. The other things that I would like to also support at the, and bring to school board would also be some of the other work that the City County Health Department works on, such as Make Your Move, that really talks about make consent explicit and bystander intervention when it comes around to sexual health and domestic violence, and also just really supporting additional mental health resources. You know, combined together, I think that ends up being something that's a lot more powerful. And I think they could see the better ties, especially between mental health support as well as gun safety. So that's where I stand on that, Sandy. And I think just, that's, I think, what this body is kind of looking at is not for us to make that decision.
Thank you, Ms. Harp. Ms. Fazika.
I have a procedural question. So if we vote on this and it does not pass, does that completely kind of cancel out if I wanted to, for instance, work with Ms. Harper, Mr. Van Lotsberg for a future firearms gun safety resolution? Does that, if we vote on this today, are we able to do that in the future? Or is this like just kind of shutting the door for all firearm safety resolutions in the future?
Good question. So my understanding of the procedure, and President Von Lossberg, feel free to jump in if I get any of this wrong. So we will vote on the motion today, either up or down. And if it passes, it will go on to Monday night with a recommendation of do pass. If the majority of council members vote against it, it will still move on to a Monday night, but if the recommendation will say that the committee recommends a do not pass, we'll vote on it either way on Monday night. And then that dispenses with this particular resolution. It does not preclude you from bringing any other resolutions having to under the topic of firearms in the future. It just, you can't, you know, it would have to have substantive changes. You just can't redo this particular one, but that topic is not closed to you.
Okay, great. May I have a follow-up?
Yes.
Okay. I really appreciate the good discussion about all this today. I still full-heartedly support this. And like I mentioned before, is I'm not requiring schools to do this. All I want the city to do is just say, hey, you know, we back this. We support firearm safety being taught in schools, no matter how you do it. Here's some resources that you could use or could not use. I just want to talk about firearm safety and how we can get more and more people discussing the topic, and how we can get our kids safe in schools, outside of schools, when they're at their home, at their friend's home. And I especially want hunter safety education to be more available to students, and especially young girls around our city and our state. So I'm supporting this motion, and I appreciate the discussion today.
Thank you for that, Ms. Fazika. Mr. Ramos.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I certainly appreciate the vibrant discussion we've had around this today, and the identification of some common ground. And I hope that we can all work together to find a solution that helps with our ultimate goal. Just looking at the proclamation that the city adopted on that Mayor Ingen read on June 5th, 2020. Anyone who can join this campaign of Gun Violence Awareness Day by wearing the color orange on Friday, June 5th, to help raise awareness about gun violence, encourage responsible gun ownership, to help keep our children safe, and to do so, we can keep firearms out of the wrong hands. I think that's what Vasika and Contos and myself are all trying to do here. We're just trying to do the best that we can to try and fulfill that pledge in that proclamation as well. And I just want to say that I really admire Ms. Vasika's bravery in bringing this before the council today. I know that it's not easy, and I know that most folks understood that this was DOA. But I appreciate Sandy put a ton of time and effort into this, something that she's very passionate about, and I think it's exemplary what she did, and very proud of my colleague for doing that and standing up for what she believes is right, and I'm happy to support the motion before us today.
Thank you, Mr. Ramos. Ms. Becerra.
Thank you. I just wanted to, well, thank you, Sandra, for bringing this forward. I appreciate the educational part of it that you are trying to convey. However, there are too many questions that in my mind seem to be unanswered. Particularly of concern to me is the appropriateness of your audience. 6 and 8-year-olds, having kids myself, I find that to be extremely young, and I don't know if they're ready and prepared to receive information such as the one that you provided with the attached referral. I wonder if the messaging needs to be vetted through other professionals. And frankly, I wonder if the MSSA is the best venue for providing that messaging. So those are concerns to me. And because of that, I will not be supporting the resolution.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Becerra. So it is 4:02. We are in committee till 4:15. Doesn't mean we need to take up all the time. But I feel as though it seems as we've run due course on questions and comments on this. I guess I will give the opportunity for the sponsor of the resolution for any closing remarks. I know you kind of made your close a couple minutes ago, but I'll just give you that opportunity right now. Just kind of, if you have any other things to say, Ms. Vasika.
Not really, just I really appreciated the discussion, and I'm open for any help on finding common ground and eliminate anything that we differ on in the future. So I'm open to discussion about this further.
Great, thanks so much for that. Oops, I'm muting myself here. Okay, great. Well, just as the chair of the committee, I will just quickly make my couple of comments. I appreciate everyone's comments and questions and the conversation back and forth. I appreciate that everyone has remained civil, because I understand that this is a hot button issue a lot of times. So thank you for everyone for your level-headed discussion. Thank you for that. And my household is one of the 65% of Missoula households that has guns. I grew up as a daughter of a law enforcement officer, always with guns in my household, and that just kind of was a part of my life when your father carries one. But I am not going to be in support of this motion because of the particular recommendation around the curriculum. I think that the difference is what Mr. Ramos read in terms of the proclamation that the mayor said. I think we all can support that. I don't feel like I am qualified in my particular elected position to move forward recommendations of particular curriculum. I think there's a process for that. I do, like President von Lossberg said, there is commonality here, and I do support that commonality. I do want, guns, people to be safe around guns. I want guns to be locked. I want children not to have access to guns. I think that's something we can all share upon. When we start getting into particular recommendations or support a particular curriculum that I don't feel comes from a neutral source like the health department with the consent and the be safe stuff that's vetted through those proper channels, I feel as though we're overstepping our bounds. So I appreciate the effort and the work that went into this. I do support, safe gun handling, background checks for gun sales. but I feel like this doesn't necessarily get to that particular, this kind of goes a little too far. So I will not be in support of it, despite the commonalities we do share on this topic. So with that, we've had public comment. We have a motion on the floor. So Kathy, do you want to go ahead and record the vote, or do you want me to do it?
I will have Diana do it.
Okay, Diana, if you wouldn't mind taking a roll call vote on the motion, please.
Stacy Anderson,
No.
John Contos, John Contos.
You're muted.
Yes. Yes. Murtha Becerra,
No.
Heather Harp,
No.
Gwen Jones,
No.
Julie Merritt,
No.
Jesse Ramos,
Yes.
Amber Sherrill,
No.
Sandra Visica,
Yes.
Brian Von Lossberg,
No.
and Heidi West.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, so that motion failed on a 3-9 vote, but as we stated a couple minutes earlier, it will appear on committee reports, having with a do not pass recommendation from this committee. So we will quickly have a conversation about this again on Monday night and vote on it. Is that correct, President Von Lossberg?
That is my understanding. Committee reports. Yep.
Okay. I'm assuming Marty will chime in from the ether if we got any of this wrong. So, okay. So quickly, we will dispense with the second item on the agenda for today, which is our yearly cleanup of items that are held in committee. So we have an update from Missoula Aging Services, which we have each year. Obviously, this last year was a little wonky with COVID and Zoom and people having other priorities that some of our yearly updates may not have come on as scheduled. So Ms. Jones, you are the sponsor of this. You used to be the representative from council to the Missoula Aging Services Board. You are no longer that person. It is now, I believe, Mr. Contos. So you would be the sponsor of the resolution to have them come in and do their yearly update. Do you want to continue with that item on the agenda, Mr. Contos? And Ms. Jones, I guess either one of you can chime in.
Go ahead, John.
Sure.
Okay, great. So let's work on getting them. I believe that they may be busy with vaccines, but how about you reach out to Susan and see about when would be a good time for her to come in, and we can get that scheduled in the coming weeks and months. I do feel it's going to be a little bit of a while yet still before we can meet in person, given the rollout of the vaccine. And some of us young people on the council being very far down the list. So the next is the health department update. This is something usually the chair, formerly Ms. Cares, had each year. I'm happy to dispense with this, and then when the good folks at the health department have a moment to catch their breath, or there's something that we feel as though we need more information on, I'm happy to write a new resolution, or sorry, new referral to have them come in. But that we all seem to be in pretty constant contact with them, given the status of what's happening around us. Anyone have a problem with that? Grand. I'm seeing shaking of heads of no. So the final one is the Missoula Municipal Code changes required by the passage of L130. And I don't think this ever actually got all the way to the point where it's a referred item, Mr. Von Lossberg. I know you were working on that, but we're waiting some legal action. How would you like to handle this item?
I think there is a skeleton referral, so I'd like to keep it on there. As I explained the night, I think it was late last year, it's clear that the legislature has a lot to say about where firearms will be permitted, and the draft that city attorney was preparing included state statute that is also called into question by the legislature. So I think, as everybody is clear about, departments have been advised about the inability to enforce our current statute, given both LR 130 and contemplated changes by the legislature. But it makes no sense to try to fix or update, would be a better way to put it, our code while the legislature is continuing to change state statute. So
I absolutely agree with that. There's quite a bit happening at the legislature, and no use revisiting this multiple times and waiting to see what finally happens. And I know there's all sorts of other moving pieces around this as well. So we will keep it on. All right. Well, that concludes all of our agenda items. Again, thank you for everyone for your robust discussion today. And with that, today, this ends today's Public Safety and Health Committee meeting, as well as the rest of the day for our committees. So enjoy your afternoon. Thank you all for your service, and be well.